Now, in today's conversation, we will delve into a topic that holds the key to our nation's prosperity and resilience, the Sustainable Development Goals and climate action. As Nigeria prepares to join the global stage in Seville, Spain, for the fourth International Conference on Financing for Development, the stakes could not be higher. Successfully implementing the SDGs and tackling climate change isn't just about meeting international targets. It's about lifting millions out of poverty, creating a sustainable economy, securing our food systems, and building a healthier, more prosperous Nigeria for generations to come. But what's our current standing, and what crucial message must Nigeria deliver to the world? Joining us to shed light on these critical issues is an economic expert, should I say, Chris Kaka. Should I call you Chris, economic expert?
Good afternoon.
Okay.
Thank you for having me yesterday.
Okay. It's a pleasure to have you on the program. Well, let's begin by, Nigeria recently validated its 2025 voluntary national review and launches 2024 SDGs progress report. Now, from an economic perspective, what are the key takeaways from these assessments, and where are we seeing significant progress, and where are the most pressing challenges in achieving the SDGs by 2030?
All right, thank you very much. I think that's almost like three questions in one, but I'll make an attempt to respond to the key ones. In terms of where are we, in 2017, we actually do a voluntary assessment. Then we did another one in 2020. This particular one now we're doing is actually the major one which we needed to do, which is expected of us. Reading through the report of that particular finding, you find that we made some progress in certain areas. There have been also areas where we've not made progress. Some will just remain at the same spot. Issues relating to fintech operations in this country has actually been helping us. We've become a hub, as it were. A lot of financial transactions cannot go on seamlessly. Trade cannot go on seamlessly because of the innovations of some of this fintech, not that they do not have their challenges. So in terms of financial integration, Nigeria is actually doing so much in it. But having said that, is to point out that there are three areas to the Sustainable Development Goal. One is about social actions, the other one is about economic actions, the other one is about also climate change actions. In terms of economy, I think we've not really done well because our per capita GDP is one of the lowest in Africa, if we're not very careful about it, and we needed to deal with it. Issues relating to social interventions, there is an International Labour Organization social protections report of 2022, which has not changed till today, that today about 11% of poor Nigerians have been able to access one form of social intervention. That tells you we have a long way to go with it. So there are wins for us, there are challenges. Nigeria today, yes, infant mortality has reduced. We made progress in terms of under 5 kids mortality as well. A couple of progress, but there's none that is actually that too significant for us, and that tells us we have a long way to go. But critical to understand is that there's now an alignment between the Sustainable Development Goal Agenda 2030 and government national development plans, as you can see in our budget. There's an alignment in it, and that shows that we're making some progress, even though we are not making as much as we would expect. But it shows, that alignment shows that we're actually on the path towards helping to achieve the SDG goal by 2030.
Okay, those areas you felt that we are not actually doing enough. Can you, for instance, look at the reforms that is ongoing? How does it fit to somehow that narrative to address those areas that you said we are not actually doing?
Okay, I think a lot has been going on. If you look for, like I said, if you look at the areas of energy, for instance, Nigeria is one of the energy deficient countries in Africa, as it were. Because, recently we hear that there is the transmission company of Nigeria say we're now generating about 407 megawatts. But the transition plan itself, the national transmission plan itself says, look, the energy we need about almost about 277 gigawatts of electricity. 1,000 megawatts is equivalent to 1 gigawatt. That's telling you that we have about a deficit of about 277,000 thereabout. And if you transmit that, because the agenda is to have, I mean, every household must have electricity by 2060. If you look at that, 35 years from now, you'll be dealing with no less than about 7,700 megawatts annually of electricity we must add to what we have in the national grid.
So how far away are we
And
from
presently they tell us we have 5,500 and something.
how far,
I mean, it's actually
how far away are we?
We're really far from the touchline, but all boils down to the fact that there are deficit financing. We have issues with, we have paucity of funds in our nation, but then that again is also a challenge that can be dealt with internally, because I am one of those.
You said dealt with internally, how?
Yes. I think I'm one of those who believe that Nigeria is not a poor country. What we have is a failed system of resource management. Forgive me if I dare to say this. I mean, something must have been wrong with our resource management system. For one individual, don't want to mention him, to have 753 duplexes in one city, you don't know what he has in other cities or across the country. For a former minister to then tell you I have contributed as much as saved about 9 billion naira in the hands of one bank, and the bank manager who might be now whatever a governor has, a block town phone. These are ridiculous things. It tells you that we are not a poor country. It's about how we manage our resources and how we set our priorities in actually dealing with them.
So how best do you think we should manage and actually get to address some of this? Because 2030 is not just far away.
It's just about 5 years from now.
Yes.
5 years from now. If you ask me, I think there's a lot to do, and that's why this conference, they're actually going to attend in Spain, this conference of international finance and development. I am not one of those. Talks are making around that Nigerians should also go, because key players are there. Anybody who has to play any role in development financing at the regional, the international, and multilateral level will be attending that particular meeting. So it provides opportunity for poor nations to begin to ask for debt relief. I do not believe that. I know what happened in 2025. I mean, 2005.
Why don't you believe, why are you not siding with debt relief?
Okay, be honest with you, I think I remember very vividly where I was working then with the DG, so excited in his office when Dr. Kunja Iweala secured the debt relief for us, and we were asked to pay a paltry sum of it. Check the debt that time and now. It is like supporting government to progress in error. If you do not tell them we cannot continue, if you make an attempt to begin to push an agenda for debt relief and you succeed at it, government machineries will still increase the debt burden and then still go it up. And they will continue to have this feeling that, look, we can continue to borrow, because at a point in time, we're going to bend these creditor nations and say, please, kindly forgive our debt, and they will give us some concession. So it's important we take up this debt and pay it. In any case, like I said, we don't have a revenue problem. We've got a spending problem with our country. That's the way I choose to want to have my opinion.
Okay, climate action progress. How is Nigeria performing on its climate commitments, particularly its energy transition and net zero target by 2060?
I think we made a lot of progress, because today now we now have the Climate Change Act of 2021, I dare to say, and that provides some framework for us on what yearly targets we need to begin to achieve in terms of reducing CO2 emissions and how we can begin to make progress towards it. Beyond that is also what we have the revised Environmental Impact Assessment Act of 1991, which is now revised to 2004. And it tells you that whatever project you want to implement, you must get a clearance of the environmental impact assessment of it to be sure that it's not going to impact negatively on the environment. The challenge, the frameworks are actually there, very quite all right. And the challenge we have as an oil-producing nation is we're trying to see how we can promote development, and at the same time, the energy you need, which is fossil fuel for us right now, to actually begin to promote and fuel that particular kind of development is something you want to begin to cut down. So we're looking for a way to strike a balance in these particular two things and see how we can begin to make progress. But I can tell you that progress is being made. If you check the budget of most of these MDAs, you find that there are elements and items in the budget line that is also moving us towards saying, look, we need to begin to cut down on CO2 emissions. We need to begin to reduce issue of deforestation, gas emissions, and all that kind of stuff. all towards the agenda of meeting the agenda 2030, as it were, and the 2060 agenda, which Nigeria has also created for itself.
That got me curious while you were talking. This conversation, who are in this conversation? Are we talking about subnationals, people at the grassroots level, and things like that? Because it has to go with, the way of doing things, and people will have to adopt it somehow. Okay, this is what we need to, but we see indiscriminate felling of trees and things like that.
Oh, no, well, I didn't get the question, but if you're relating the issues of felling of trees.
I'm actually talking about net zero. The transition, we are talking about energy transition and things like that.
Yes.
How are we actually bringing Nigerians, ordinary Nigerians, into this conversation so that they can actually, it's a collective effort. It's not something
if you watch some MDA's budget, there's a lot of capacity building and knowledge sharing, particularly for people at the rural area who feels the best I can have is just to walk into the forest. The deforestation itself is also contributing to climate change issues. The oil companies who are flaring grasses anyhow. These are issues that maybe the ordinary Nigerian in the rural area is not fully aware of. And so if you go into, for instance, the Ministry of Agri budget, you'll find there are a budget line that involves providing some stoves and some solar panels to some rural communities to help them provide alternative source of energy rather than going falling trees in the bush like that to want to. So you find in all MDAs, the Ministry of Powers, all of them are actually doing the same thing to see that they galvanize the support. Because the truth be told, the actions to be taken is not by government. It's government providing the facility for the individuals to also comply. Because as individuals, we are the ones actually contributing to the CO2, the emissions that is actually going on, that the world globally is trying to deal with at the moment.
Well, our own contribution is minimal, indeed. Compared to the other developing countries.
Correct.
But one of the issues that actually I want to pick your thoughts on is financing gap. What is the scale of Nigeria's SDG and climate financing gap?
Okay,
and what factors, domestic or global, are contributing to that?
Okay, I think there's a lot going on with the SDG. The gap is so huge. I think at a point in time, we were told that we needed about 10 billion annually to actually address issues of the SDG if we must attain the agenda objective by 2030. Recently, a statistics has also come out, which is making that very, very much higher. We don't have that. If you aggregate all the money, both national and subnationals, is actually pumping into this particular direction. I don't think it's able to gross that 10 billion naira for issues relating to.
So how do we bridge the gap?
Climate change issue. For me, it's not about going around borrowing, which is one agenda I think the government delegations might begin to push, is to begin to see, look, let us block this financial rascality that is going on in this country. We all know it is going on. You want us to cut down? The executive and the legislature, everybody has to cut down on spending. Don't push it on the ordinary Nigerians. Yes, the cost of governance actually needs to go on. Actually needs to come down. You don't go buy the latest SUV and tell Nigerians you need to be patient. You must lead by examples for all of us to begin to follow you suit. But the other more particular issue, which I think the Nigerian delegation need to take to it, is that, look, we must begin to speak to some of these creditor nations. You should ensure that every credit our governments at the national and subnational level actually contracts with you. There is a clear impression of the input of citizens of this country inside it. You don't go borrow money. At the end of the day, you come back home, and we don't see we can't relate the resources you have borrowed for what you want to do with it. And at the end of the day, we're not seeing. So we're saying, look, they need to help us deal with that particular. Put it as one of the caveats, like the IMF do. Say, look, there must be a lot of citizen engagement and consultations in the kind of depth you want to engage in so that they can approve. Beyond that is the fact that, look, we need to speak to them to see how to help us address the illicit financial flow of resources. Nigeria is one of the highest. These are resources that are needed to develop our economies that actually finding their way. I mean, developed economies have become pure heavens for people who now steal money out of this country, illegally launder money out of this country, and they host them in that particular place and keep the money there. They need to help us, because if we have these resources, I can assure you that if we must borrow, our level of borrowing will actually drop drastically, because these are resources that would have helped us to. So let us see how they can actually do a series of repatriation of some of these stolen funds in our country and help us stop providing cover for some of these illicit financial flows.
Now, the
that are
fourth
leaving this country.
international conference on finance and for development in Seville.
Yeah.
What should we expect from it?
Well, just what I have said, look, the Nigerian delegation is also going there with their own agenda, and I'm saying, look, let's not go there and begin to preach we need debt forgiveness, even though it might be a government agenda. Citizens of this country do not buy into it, because when you are forgiving the debt at the end of the day, we do not see the dividends of that debt forgiveness. And so we feel we've collected the money, let us pay the money. We borrowed the money for a particular agenda. We need to do something about it. But above this is the critical need for the civil society in this country to begin to monitor resource utilization by government ministries and MDAs itself. You don't collect money and say you want to build a refinery, or you want to build a refinery, you want to repair this refinery. The money comes in, and at the end of the day, we don't see it. And we're told that the refinery is not working. And nobody's saying anything.
Okay.
So it's important the civil society actually brace up to begin to touchlight issues of borrowings of government and ensure that even when they borrow, that resources is applied for what is actually intended to achieve for the benefit of the ordinary Nigerians in this country.
Thank you very much, Chris Kaka. It's been a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you for having me.